Yes, you're listening here on the coolest of the cool, the Cooley Cool Show. Yep, Sunday Night Vibes. Yep, you're listening here on the coolest of the cool, the Cooley Cool Show. And yes, we definitely have a good topic of discussion for tonight here on Sunday Night Vibes. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to us on all our social media platforms. You gotta follow me on my YouTube channel, The Cooley Cool Show. You can also follow me on my Twitter account, formerly known Twitter and now X, at CooleyCool2412. You can also follow me on my Instagram page at Brent_TheChamp. You can also follow me on my other podcast-related places at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and as always, Spreaker.com. Yep, we're going to get started in just a couple seconds, getting everything else set up. Got a good topic of discussion here on this Sunday night. You know, NFL, crazy wild games. But we're not going to talk about the NFL. We're going to talk about other things. If you already follow my podcast, you know what I mean. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. Wow, 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 wow. You are now being tuned in to the coolest of the cool, the Cooley Cool Show. We rock it from coast to coast, north to south, and yes, even in Antarctica. Now, without further ado, the man that exhilarates nothing but absolute coolness, your host, Brent. Wow, thank you. Yep, so here, thank you for tuning in here to Sunday Night Vibes. We're on the coolest of the cool, the Cooley Cool Show. Yep, we rock from coast to coast, north to south, and yes, even in Antarctica. And if you're in Antarctica, let us know that there's getting cold down there. So, the topic of discussion for tonight's podcast, obviously, is Sunday Night Vibes. But the topic, common sense, does it exist? That is what I and you and everyone wants to know. So, the reason why I say that at the top of the discussion is common sense does exist, because there's a lot of crazy stuff that's out there in the world that people are just constantly falling trapped to because people aren't willing to have common sense, or more or less don't want to have common sense when it comes to particular subject matters and things, topics of discussions, because they're afraid they're not going to fit in with the cool kids or the in crowd, because they're afraid that they're going to get excluded because they're not popular enough. So I had kind of a thought process on a lot of things. There's always a big debate, discussion between a lot of these, flat earthers, and they start talking about the earth being flat, and then you got the globalists and scientists, they're morons and idiots. If you listen to my podcast, you know exactly where I stand with this. As far as my thought process. As far as my thinking on how certain things can be swindled and dwindled and made for people to take advantage of and to get their ideas out there and their, line their pockets with lots of moolah, lots of money, baby. Because that's what it all comes down to. Is the almighty dollar bill, y'all. It's all what it is. It's all it is always going to be, man. And trust me, it's the long-running con scam of them all. And it's going to continue to be the long-running con and scam until something happens. But other than that, it's going to continue to happen. Now, for the most part, I look at this from a different perspective on a lot of things. Like, a lot of these scientists and the science world and the community will like, man, back in the day, for these people not to understand why, the world, knows about all the physics and the geometry and how being able to spot things and know the curvature and see it and the calculations of, X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, the people back in the day when they first, hundreds of thousands of years ago figured this out, by measuring distance and all this other stuff, right? And they'll say this. And they'll be like, they'll give them tons of credit and they'll be like, oh man, they're incredibly smart, incredibly intelligent, and how they were able to be able to come up with this. And I would be the one to just break the norm on that nonsense. Well, if these scholars from back in the old days, the old times, the ancient times, they were so highly intelligent, highly smart, then why is it that back in those days, they was using sticks with some vinegar to wipe their ass with? Yeah, not using the modern things that we use today, like toilet paper and be able to wipe your butt properly, but they were using sticks and they were, put some type of vinegar or whatever, and then they were like, okay, here you go, you can use it right after me. Hygiene and sanitation really wasn't their forte, but them being excellent scholars and being able to calculate distance unbeknownst to them by basing on shadows and, apparent, measurements that they've calculated themselves, they were very highly intelligent in that, but in other aspects, as far as being able to come up with some type of toilet paper to wipe your ass, and maybe to smell good or to brush your teeth, that wasn't precedent. That just didn't happen. And, the scientific community says, well, it wasn't invented back then, things like that. But they were able to calculate and formulate, distances and things of that nature to back then. Even going so far as to, Sir Isaac Newton, with the theory of gravity, He was like, oh, the theory of gravity, what up comes down because space was that. But, they was still, using shacks, whatever they could find, leaves or whatever, to wipe their ass. But now in the modern day, we're able to have certain things to kind of be able to better clean ourselves. But back then, it was who the hell cares? We give a lot of credit to, the ancient times and the ancient beings of the humans back then, saying they were just highly intelligent. They knew what they're doing. They made great masterpieces and things like that. But they couldn't come up with certain commodities that we utilize now these days that are very beneficial. But, they just didn't cross their mind. Or, at a point in time, for the longest time, human beings across the entire world, doesn't matter what race you were, what area, with ethnicity, slavery was a predominantly big thing across the entire world. And then all of a sudden, people were like, you know what, I just don't want to be a fucking slave anymore. They were like, fuck this shit, and they started uprising. But back then, people just said, shut the hell up, you're going to be doing this. Like, dude, are we getting paid for this? Like, fuck, man, I'm working my ass off, I'm still not getting shit, And then now, it's like, somehow a click happened, and then it just was like, fuck this, man. I would say, on the retrospect, that this is including my ancestries and yours and everyone else's. Back in the day, there was probably some dumb motherfuckers back then. People like to give them credit, say they were highly intelligent and incredible for coming up with stuff. And that's the key word. They were coming up with shit. Coming up with stuff. I like to say the other word to kind of get my point across, coming up with some shit, but we give them tons of credit, saying that they're highly intelligent of things. the science nerds and nerds themselves say, oh, well, they were just highly, things weren't invented back then. Things just weren't invented back then, but they were doing all these other things. And it was just happened. There was a period of time during the Dark Age. The Dark Age was fucking dark, where they went backwards, and shit didn't go as the way it was supposed to go. Like, they didn't move forward; they went backwards. Think about it. They're like sanitational stuff that we take, kind of, just advantage of because we just normal thing. It's maybe an easy thing for us because we're just so accustomed to it. But back then, they didn't really care. But at the same time, they was doing all this stuff back then in the day. And they were just, it is what it is. But then they were able to calculate, the planets, the moon, the stars, and all this stuff, the distances, the street. What? Doesn't make much sense, but it's just things were different back then. It just wasn't things that were invented how they are now, And it's like, you kind of have to be like, look, I don't know about you, but there's some underlining, some trickery, or just maybe my thing is, and they'll say, well, human beings haven't been on this earth long enough. And the evolution of, the intelligence didn't really kick in. And you'd be like, oh, so you're saying, in other words, we were just fucking dumb, but we were able to come up with stuff to maybe be a building block from? Maybe? Is that what I'm getting from that? And you're like, oh, yeah. Building. Some type of building block. Oh. Okay, maybe some type of building block, and then we just kind of ran with it, right? Okay, and I just, me personally, I'm looking at it from a common sense perspective, to be like, something ain't stirring the Kool-Aid, but, people with PhD degrees, doctor degrees, think that they know everything because I have this, I have that, look what I have. And then they talk to somebody who doesn't have those accolades, and it's just like, you don't have it, so you don't know everything. You don't know what we know because you don't have these accolades that suggest that you know what the fuck you're talking about. But no, what I have is common sense to kind of refute and what you're saying, because are you going to ask me the question as far as why back in the day during the Roman times, since they were such scholarlies of scholars coming up, mathematics and geometry and all this stuff, but they couldn't figure out toilet paper or something to be able to to wipe their ass with. But they were using sticks with doused in some vinegar and wiping and just not even wiping, like scrubbing their ass. And then leaving it says, oh, you can use it too. I'm not saying it. I'm sorry. That's one thing. I'm just not. I mean, that also goes to say, as now we fast forward, and as I said, a lot of stuff is a big deception and a big con, and it's fueled on the getting people's money, because that's usually what it's always fueled. If I can be able to swindle you in order for you to invest in my thoughts, my agendas, what I'm looking to get done, in order for me to move up the hierarchy in whatever I'm trying to establish, I'm doing my job. I'm doing the biz that's getting to me where I need to be. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter whether or not it's the right thing. No, it's about getting yours. That's what the whole thing is. And that's what they end up doing all the time. And so many people don't really understand that. And they just kind of go on the couch like, oh, no, I can't. Listen, I've already talked to you about, as far as if you listen to my podcast, about earlier things about human beings are corrupted. Okay? They are flawed like a motherfucker. Okay? That's, for instance, for saying like, they say we have thousands or hundreds of thousands or whatever satellites that are up in orbit in the space orbiting Earth. And we never hear anything about satellites colliding with each other, or satellites falling down and actually crashing into some shit. We don't ever hear anything about that. Right? We don't hear things and one thing is what they'll say is, well, there's so much space out there. It's so abundantly big that there's so much space. Now, I would tell you, and I refute this, because the simple fact that if it's man-made, trust me, there's always going to be human error. And the human error is not to suggest that we're just going to fuck shit up. No, it's because we do things in order we think that's right, but then sometimes we find out that something's wrong. And then we go back to the drawing board, and then from the drawing board, we kind of rethink our idea for that project or whatever, and then we come up with a better design in order to fix it out. Now, you're going to tell me that we've been having these satellites put it up in orbit in this outer space, and we have never had a satellites collide and crash into each other, and or some shit like that happen. Or maybe it's happened, they just don't tell us. And be like, why won't they tell us? Maybe they don't want to tell us that, yeah, we just don't know what the fuck we're doing, but we're just hoping the shit just doesn't collide and crash. But that's one thing, is to say that has never happened before, such as that is purely saying that we are so perfect in everything that we do, and that there's no way it can never have a flaw to it. No, that's bullshit. Humans have a flaw. Humans are built to have a flaw. If you look into the Bible, I mean, no one was perfect at all. I mean, Adam and Eve, they ate from the forbidden fruit, and they were flawed. God built them, and God built them, and they still were corrupted by the serpent, the snake, and ate the fruit that they weren't supposed to eat. So, I mean, it kind of says, humans make mistakes, and whether it's intentional or not intentional, that means that we do have a flaw somewhere in our own system, our own selves. And it's not outstandingly bad or anything like that. It's just that we make mistakes. We have human error. That's what the whole thing was. Just, yeah, humans have human error and stuff. And that's the thing. It's just that way, So that's why I always say, like, you telling me that we're so perfect that we built satellites like that to where they have never crashed or anything like that, or anything, some type of significance like that, or they just fall out and you're like, oh, what happened? They just crash land into an ocean somewhere. You know, that'd be one of the big things we'll say. Just crash land in the ocean. Ocean's just big. Earth's just big. Crash land in the ocean. Oh, okay, gotcha. But I mean, you would have to sometimes think about what is it that a lot of people are getting out of this. Well, I'll tell you right now what they're getting out of it. Certain people, certain selected people are getting money out of this. Like I said, and I always talk about this on my podcast because I want to bring it to mention. And, you know, like, you always hear prominent people of society have these encounters with certain things and that, and then they'll go on and talk about their encounters. But you won't believe the people down the block or whatever who are, you know, struggling, maybe living on Section 8, maybe don't have the high intelligence or not been in, you know, certain social class status, you know, and they would say something like that, be like, bullshit. You're not going to believe them, but you're going to believe this person over here because, oh, maybe they went to an Ivy League school, or their family is prestiged in the social status, or because they have money or whatever. You believe them, then you believe the regular old average Joe, maybe below Joe citizen. That's an error. That's a human error, right? But me just sitting there talking, telling you, you'd probably be like, yeah, you don't know. Whatever. He's just saying some stuff. And what does he know? Does he have a doctorate degree? Did he go to an Ivy League school? No, but what I have is common sense to refute a lot of some of the stuff that you have. And they're like, well, look at the evidence. And if you notice, every time with scientists, they say, look at the evidence. Because that's what they want to base everything on. I'm not looking at the evidence. I don't even do any calculations. I don't even do any of that. Because as I just said earlier, these individuals that comes up with all this stuff or said, oh, this is what we came up with, because we as humans have to justify certain means. We cannot just say it just happens. We have to come up with some reason, some why this happened or whatever. Can't just say it is what it is. You know, they have to come to something like they'll tell you about the Big Bang Theory, that all of a sudden, boom, there was a burst of energy that it created the entire universe. And the universe just came to be. It had neutrons and neurons and atoms and 1/10 of a millisecond or something like that, and it just burst. So you're telling me that the universe just, boom, just came out of something. Just boom, just happened. And everything that we do, or everything that is happening, where is that ever happened? Where is that ever seen? Like, honestly, where is that ever seen? You know, this is not formidable. You know, let's put it this way. In my hand, right here, right now, in my hand, I want 10-piece barbecued wings to just, boom, pop up right now. I want some 10-piece barbecue chicken wings right now in my hand. Boom, in a tray. Boom, ready to eat. It's not happening. It didn't happen. What's going on? You know what I'm saying? Scientists will say, oh, the universe doesn't work that way. But wait a minute, you're telling me that the Big Bang said it did happen that way, and that we're all atoms of neurons and all this other stuff, but it happened back in the day when the universe first started. It just, boom, big explosion, came out of from nothing. But I want some chicken wings, in a tray, in a box, just boom, it happened. I can't get no chicken wings. But you're going to tell me the universe started that way. Do you not see the flaw in that? Do you not see the flaw, the obstruction of disarray, disbelief that will be just flawed in everything? you know. So, like I said, this is, that's why I say, like, there's a lot of stuff you gotta question. You know, you have to figure out, that's why I said common sense. And then for certain things that people, oh, they were so scholarly back, you know, like I said, they'll say it over and over just to put them on a pedestal that they were so highly intelligent back in the day, that everything that they did was just so outstanding, so incredible. But for certain things that we do now, certain things we have now that we've kind of built upon, they couldn't come up with it back then, but they were so way by their time in certain aspects that they were just so much smarter. That doesn't, I don't get that. I don't get it. And it just wasn't built back then. It just wasn't invented. Oh, it wasn't invented. But there was the basis for everything that apparently goes on, happens now. So the basis of geometry, physics, mathematics, certain scientific contexts, all came from back then, which is the basis for what we have now. You know, they just decided to make some shit up in order to fit the way they want it to be. Right? And we just go along with it because they came back then, but these are the same people that decided to make some stuff up, but yet they couldn't come up with certain stuff that were utilized. See what I'm saying? And then, like I said, they'll say all day long, this just wasn't invented. They just had the stuff back then to just do it. Had to wait until other things happen. Weird. Very, very, very weird. I don't know. I always go back to when I say about back in the early 2000s when they had the guy talking about internet millions. And he's like, oh yeah, you just do this and that and you internet millions. And it was nothing but a song and dance comedy pawn show, you know? And then it was like, oh, buy my, the way to secrets of success. And it was really just them to get paid off, you buying into what they're going to supposedly teach you when it really isn't anything. It's just to get your money and them to just talk about it without really telling you anything. But people are so, I don't know the word for it, but people are so just like, oh, I need to get, I want to have it. I want, you know. So I talk about as far as these people that always say they were abducted by aliens or things of the nature. They're like, oh yeah, I got, you know, they always talk about it and they go in interviews, and then next thing you know, there comes the book deal. And then their book is like, oh, buy my book. Oh, the reason why they want you to buy their book because they want to get paid off this stuff. Because they figure they're such a prolific person, contributor to society and everything. How could they ever be just conning people in order to get paid and get money? No, like I said, it's like a magic show where the deception runs rampant. They utilize not the sleight of hand of hiding the card, but different techniques or ways of doing it in order for you not to notice the deception. And that's the whole thing. Deception runs rampant all the whole board. And you have to be very, very, very careful on how it's ran, because you're going to miss the whole entirety of what is going on. Because if they can fool you, they're going to fool you left and right. That's why I say with a lot of the science stuff, especially with the outer space and all this stuff, you need to be very cognitive on how this stuff is being treated. You know? And the reason why for it is for the simple factor is that there's a lot of things that are going on in society today. So you guys have to understand the deception that is being played all around the entirety. Like, I'm going to read off some of the stuff that I already talked about in my previous podcast in the past, couple weeks. Like, for instance, astronauts stuck in space. Talks of the astronauts on damage to their health and eyesight for being stuck in space for that period of time. But then there have astronauts been in space for about over a year, and they never said anything about possible health damages from those astronauts being stuck in space for that long period of time. But apparently these astronauts who are apparently stuck in space since, I think, beginning of the summer, midsummer, that it's becoming such a significant problem that they want to talk about this, right? Yeah. Then there's, election year. Obviously, the scams will grow and have grown because they just come out of the woodworks. If you don't know already, they just constantly feel, he didn't do this, or they left this out. Some old bullshit. Then on top of not only that, think of the second, the governor's top aide in New York, their second-hand person, facing criminal charges for being a Chinese spy agent or whatever, for espionage, right? Slipped right right underneath their nose, been up there getting paid money, benefits, house, buying real estate, all that commodities that many people say, oh, but that person apparently was selling the secrets to everything, and then not only that, a former CIA agent with the CIA during the 80s through the end of the 80s, along with his apparently bloodline got him into the agency and was his co-conspirator from the report. Then it got hired on by, I'm not going to say an agency name, but got hired on, but he was placed in there for government contracting, but they knew of his ties to the PRC, People's Republic of China, but they hired him anyway, so he was getting paid, getting the benefits and all the commodities and all that stuff. Then they finally decided to charge him, arrest him, and he's already at the age of 71, and then he just got found, and that was like back in 2020, and they just got found just recently, sentenced 10 years in a federal prison. 10 years for all the shit he's been selling, the secrets, like national security. But, not going to talk about that. Or then we're going to talk, or for here, think about P. Diddy and his arrest and the apparent baby oil and all the stuff that people talking about. Ain't no party like a Diddy party, But then no one talks about the Playboy Mansion back in the day when they used to have the Playboy Mansion and the parties, all that thing. That was kind of quiet. I'm just saying, P. Diddy, if he did the wrong thing, he did the wrong thing, he'd be held accountable for it. But as far as the Playboy Mansion, I'm pretty sure there was some shit going on over there too, but they're not going to delve into that. They're not going to look into it because it doesn't fit the narrative or the norm or the personnel that they're trying to target, Then you have the social media sites that continue to keep saying crazy shit. As far as, the James Webb Telescope they just found a colony of alien spacecrafts that just turn and divert their course and come here to Earth. And people just making a mockery just to feel so that maybe they can get more views and people to watch their content or whatever. So obviously making lies and deception from, those social media platforms. And, then the aliens and all that other malarkiness. So, in a sense, the deception on a lot of shit runs continuously rampant. Like, are you not seeing what is going on? Like I said, people don't really tune. If you tune into my podcast, and if you listen to what I'm telling you, and you are full, kind of looking at it from having not just going in like, oh yeah, but if you do your own thought process, and you just go ahead and use a little bit of common sense, you're going to figure some shit out, and you're going to open your eyes to a lot of things, and you'd be like, wait a minute, that really? Yeah, what the fuck? Your eyes, your mind will open up and says, yeah, whoa, hold the fuck on. That's why the title of this podcast for Sunday Night Vibes, the topic of the discussion is common sense doesn't exist, because in the world we live in at today and age, that doesn't exist anymore. People have fueled it too much of craziness, and they're trying to get you heavily invested into what they want. And it's all fueled around the what? I say it all the time. By the almighty greenback, the almighty dollar bill, y'all. It's a long scam, a long con, and they're going to continue to keep doing it. You know why? Because they want your money. Plain and simple. It's a huge, huge, huge deception. And they're going to fool you if you allow it to happen. You ain't got to sit here and freaking say, I believe everything you say. Just take the shit for what it is, for a grain of salt. Like, think about it. Is there hardly anything on the news that is ever fucking good? Everything on the news is something bad. They tell you, you eating this, you eating that, that's bad for you. This is bad for this. You can't eat this. Blah. You know, think about it. If you get sick, and you're sick, right? You go to the doctor and get checked out, right? The doctor's going to tell you, yeah, you got flu-like symptoms. They can't say it's the flu because they would have to do testing in order to confirm whether or not it's the flu virus that you do have in your body. But they don't really go along the lines of that because they're like, that's a little bit more. And I can tell you, you got symptoms that are categorized to be what the flu virus can give to a person, but it's going to take another step to go ahead and actually do the testing on this today. Yep, you have the flu. You have the flu virus. But what I can say is that you have flu-like symptoms. Think about it. They tell you all the time. If you have, like, for the people who get COVID, they like, oh yeah, you have the COVID. You're tested positive for COVID. You have COVID symptoms. That's like flu-like symptoms. Because you have a series of it that says, okay, this. And now, could it be something different? Yeah, it could. But you're having symptoms, but they're not going to say it is. That's why every doctor tells you, yeah, you do have flu-like symptoms. They say, yeah, you do have flu-like symptoms. But it's different than them saying, yeah, you have the flu. Now, if you do have the flu, they're going to tell you that you have the flu. But when they don't know, but you're showing certain signs that can fit it, yeah. Now, are they going to be 100% right? Not necessarily. They just are going to go based on what okay, you're sniffing, coughing, sneezing. Yeah, that's flu-like symptoms. Okay, you're runny nose. Okay, going to the bathroom a lot. And kind of in the bowel. Okay, yeah, that's flu-like symptoms. Could it be something else? Absolutely. It could be something else. Absolutely. But since they don't know what that other thing that hasn't shown, they're just going to go based on what they know from their training, medical, and experience. It's, it's just, I'm just trying to bring like they talk about the new moon. Oh, the new moon. They're like, oh, the new moon. No one's seen it. The only people who apparently can see it is the ones with high, powerful telescopes that are by major governments and, astronomers. Their telescopes can only see it. They were getting people to say, oh, the moon. Last time I heard that the moon itself controls certain things here on Earth. There's waves and things of that nature dealing with gravitational pull. Getting a second moon, wouldn't that affect certain gravitational pulls and effects? Shouldn't it? Just saying. You're saying we're supposed to get a second moon wave that's already here. Then all of a sudden it's just gonna, came here and it's gonna get released by our gravitational pull. Sounds suspect, or as the young bucks say, sounds pretty sus to me. This shit is beyond fucking crazy at this point. If you don't recognize the whole scam in it all, you're living just, I guess, you just don't give a damn. Two, you're just not trying to, you want to live that you can't be deceived. I'm just bringing food for thought because I want people to kind of interact with my podcast to hear their thoughts, and I'm just watching this game, and damn, Dak Prescott just threw a damn interception right to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's like, dude, you have money on this game, Dak? Like, what the fuck, man? You threw it right to the man. Like, shit. So, oh my Jesus. So, yeah, I just, oh my goodness. I just, yeah. So, and yeah, we're gonna cut it. Cutting our Sunday Night Vibes. I'm gonna get something to drink. Yeah. Maybe I'm gonna come up with something so that they can platform off in the, billions or 100,000 years from now, where they can use. Maybe instead of the middle finger saying F you, I'm gonna use my pinky and it's gonna say screw you. Right? Everybody's like, no, that's the new middle finger, is the pinky. I'm gonna just fucking pinky, mother fricker. Right? So, yep. If you haven't done so already, be sure to follow and like me and subscribe to me on my other social media platforms. Yeah. You gotta follow me on my YouTube channel, The Cooley Cool Show. You can also follow me on my Instagram page at Brent_the_champ. You can also follow me on X-Square at CooleyCool2412. You can also follow me, as always, on my other podcast platforms at Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and as always, Spreaker.com. And we rocking from coast to coast, north to south, and yes, even in Antarctica. And if you're in Antarctica, I've said it before this way, where the fuck is Bigfoot and where the fuck is the goddamn Yeti? So, yeah, you heard me, god damn it. So, it is what it is. Take care, and goodbye.